Welcome to today's episode of the Group X podcast. I'm your host, Tony Zanardo, and if you haven't yet done so, hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. Today, I'll be talking to Adam Epskamp, trainer and presenter for Les Mills Asia Pacific. We discuss enhancing the experience of participants through training other trainers, scripting versus non-scripting, trying to be someone you're not, and how to present no matter where you are or what you're doing. So grab your favourite beverage, sit back, and enjoy the show. Adam, mate, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I appreciate your time.
Pleasure to be invited along, TZ.
Mate, all good. So for our listeners, can you tell us where your fitness journey began?
Where it began. I just told the story recently, actually, and it comes up every now and again.
Yep.
But fitness for me started as a kid, running around, playing a lot of basketball. I'm actually the exact same height now as I was when I was 12 years old. So I thought I was on the way to 6'6", Michael Jordan status. But I never grew another centimeter. But I still played ball. I could slam dunk the ball at that height, and I was very athletic and I loved it, right? And so I just had that upbringing. We all remember riding around on BMX bikes and coming home when the street lights came on and all that sort of stuff. And I got into surfing as well, or bodyboarding more importantly. Yep. And that was it. It was just active as a kid. Now, as a kid, I had to work on it. Whereas I had a younger brother he just kind of had the X factor.
Yep. And
so he was always good for spurring me on a lot in my fitness journey, or just as a kid, we just called it playtime, right? And so it was good to have a teammate like him. So I used to hang out with my younger brother and his mates because they were all surfing, whereas my mates were all learning how to do games and stuff like that, which I still haven't worked out how to do. But so I was a super active kid. But as I got into my late teens, so I got my driver's license probably about 17, I think it was. And then I worked out you could order booze and food from your car. I thought that was pretty top notch.
Drive-through bottle shops.
I turned into I was a big dude. How good? By the time I was...
how good were drive-through bottle shops back in the day? That was fantastic.
The best.
Where have they all gone? I know, you just drove straight up and you come up to the window. What are you after? Yep, sweet. And away you went. Man.
Cash, they chucked in the back of your car for you. They'd grab you one out if you wanted one, it was...
They had direct-to-boot going on well before Coles and Woolies were even anywhere near it. Direct-to-boot was happening way back when. Sorry, I interrupted you, mate. Keep going.
But, so that was and that was a real big turning point, because by the time I was about 19, I was 115 kilos.
Whoa.
So I was a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
And I was having fun. I was at university studying engineering and just eating everything I could see. Now, that started to take its toll on me physically and from a fitness point of view. And I went down to the southwest of Western Australia where I grew up. There's a beach down there called Smith's Beach in the Yallingup area. Just one of my favourite beaches in the world, right? Just one of my favourite places in the world. And it was one of those days you dream of as a kid, big surf, perfect conditions, not many people out there. And I paddled out, but by the time I paddled out, I was blue in the face. And that's when I had that moment, right? I decided at that point that it was time to do something about it. Now, a lot of my mates at that stage, and this is crazy when you think about it, at 19 years of age, had got to the same size as I had and decided they were too old to do anything about it. So they just gave up on surfing, whereas I decided it's...
Can I interrupt you for a second? When you said 100 and whatever kilos it was, I was assuming you were talking fitness and had been training, but you're talking... Unfit fat.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
115 kgs.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I totally misunderstood it. My head
Sumo
just went to the
style, mate.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah. So that's how it was affecting my health. Was I couldn't do the things I love to do. So I remember sitting out at this break and contemplating life at that point, because I had about 15 minutes before I could catch my breath and decide what to do next. And at that point I was like, it's time to ask for help, which was pretty cool upon reflection, to think that I, as a young man, was ready to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And I think back now as to how I came to that, because a lot of people, even as adults, don't ask for help. There's this fear around asking for help.
Yeah.
And I worked out later in my high school years that asking for help was the best way to get forward faster. I asked how to do my calculus and geometry and trigonometry, and sort of did really well. So that came from that experience. Plus, Mum was always like, "You can do whatever you friggin' want in life." It's like if you set your mind to it, you work your butt off and you get after it. So, I think those combination of experiences put me in a position to ask for help. So I was sitting out in this amazing break. It was Super Tubes is the name of the beach break. And that was it. I was like, I gotta go ask for help. Paddled in, stumbled up the beach, jumped in the car, drove 3.5 hours back then up to a leisure centre called Craigie Leisure Centre.
Oh yeah, been there. No, that
just
one
north of Perth.
Yep.
Yeah, and I walked in. Right, I walked in. I still had sand on my feet. Like literally drove straight there and walked in. Went to the reception, said, "Hey, I need some help. Need to get my fitness back on track." And they were like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, we've got an appointment this afternoon. You're going for a fitness appraisal." And so all right. Went home, showered, got my gym shoes, came back for the fitness appraisal. And I still remember the two people that were there. So it was David Cook and Carmen Fitzgerald. I still remember them. Right, they took me through my first fitness appraisal. Was on the erg bike and did all the skin folds and all that stuff back then, and they got me started. And I'd love to say within 6 months I was ripped to the bone, but I wasn't. It takes a little longer than that, as it turns out. But within 6 months, I'd got my confidence back. I'd got some direction back as to how to take control of this whole situation, and it was that experience that was like, you know what, I've got to be involved in a profession that helps people achieve this.
Yep.
And so that's when I decided that mechanical engineering wasn't for me and I had to go do something else. So I spent the next 12 months studying audio engineering. So I'm an audio engineer as well, which was cool. That was more of a passion project. It still is.
Yep.
I still love, working with all this technology stuff and learning as we grow. But so I started working in construction and got some money up, getting ready to go to university. And of course, I looked at PT and physiotherapy, human movement, kinesiology, like all those physical modalities. And I was in my chiropractor's office one day, and I was just saying, "Hey, I'm struggling to work what I want to do. Like, I definitely want to get into a profession that helps people achieve a better quality of life, get fit, and get healthy." And he said to me, he said, "Well, you've been an amazing chiropractic patient for the last, what was I at that age? Probably 8 years. So why don't you be a chiropractor?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not smart enough to be a chiropractor." And he was like, "Man, you're smart enough to be an engineer. You're smart enough to be a chiropractor." So that was the final tick in the box for that direction.
Wow.
So it would have been about 6 months after that conversation. I was sitting in my first lecture with 80, I think it was about 80 other students, and embarked on that part of my journey as a chiropractor. And I was going through uni, and I met this guy who was getting paid to exercise. Right? I was like, holy heck! Like, I was going to the gym now. So at that stage, I was probably about 90 kilos, 95 kilos, but leaner and more muscle, and was feeling pretty good about myself.
Yep. Yep.
They used to call me the biggest back in Inaloo, right? So I had some pretty good lats on me back then.
Yep.
But this classmate of mine was getting paid to exercise, right? And I thought, well, that's incredible. Like, how's he doing that? So he was teaching these classes called RPM and body pump, and I was like, I've heard of those, right? I've actually walked past those rooms,
Yep.
especially at Craigie Leisure Centre.
Yes.
You'd walk past them, you'd hear the noise and you'd look in, and there's a whole bunch of people moving like robots doing the same thing. And so you'd scoot on past, especially as a young man. That's pretty intimidating.
Yes.
With my first class, I'll tell you about that in a bit. But I was intrigued by this guy that was getting paid to exercise. So I went and attended a few of these spin classes, or it was RPM, and I just fell in love with it. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I gotta go do this as well. Like, that'd be a good way to pay my way through university, and have fun at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into it. That classmate of mine was Ian Hennessy too, by the way. So
cool.
This is the Group X podcast.
You've completely blown my mind. I had obviously no idea. I mean, I've known you for a while, but didn't know that backstory and on that whole journey of what happened and where you've come from prior to walking into a group fitness room. That's huge, man. Thank you for sharing that, because that's that can be. I'd say some people would be not embarrassed, but some people would find it a little bit hard to talk about. But I'm grateful that you've shared that with us in giving us an understanding on really where it all started and what made you click to go, you know what, I want to do something about this. Because let's be realistic, if you hadn't, where do you think you'd be now?
I would be one of the people that I look after now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fly in, fly out engineer that has spent a lot of time away from his family and didn't have health or fitness as a priority, you know, and that takes its toll on a body. It takes its toll on families. So I don't doubt that that's where I'd be. And I've got an appreciation for the noble great, right? Even as a fitness professional, I love wine, and I couldn't imagine where that would go now. Like if I was not as educated as I am now and passionate about creating, some remarkable experiences in the fitness space. That's definitely where I would have headed.
Love it.
I would have been well remunerated, but I don't know if my quality of life would have been great. But I will tell you, having been in the industry and being in an amazing and special place to train other instructors, that story is actually not uncommon. It's not common, but it's not uncommon. And I think it's cool to share, because when people look at you at face value, as a trainer, you've probably always been fit and it's been easy for you. Now I weigh in on average probably around 75 kgs. So, that's a 40 kg turnaround. It helps people bridge that gap. It's like, right, totally. He was that guy. So, and then it breaks barriers down for people as well. They're like, right, well, if he can achieve that, then I could certainly achieve that, So I think it's important to share that story. It's why I am who I am now, to have had that experience.
No, thank you, mate. Thank you. I appreciate that. So RPM was the first group fitness class you walked into at Craigie?
That wasn't the first class I went into.
Oh, okay.
So the first class I went into was another program called Body Jam.
No way.
That was the first class I went into. Now, as I was getting fitter and trimmer and more confident, I noticed the other half of the species, the female species, and
yep. I'm liking where this is going already. Continue.
I thought, wow, there's a lot of women in those classes, and I'd met another friend who I was quite keen on as well. And she said, "Have you not been to a group fitness class before?" I said, "Nah, I've never really felt like that's my space. I don't feel like that's a room that would invite me in." Which, again, like I said, that's a young man's narrative, but she invited me to come and do this class with her, and
Awesome.
I think it was like a Saturday mid-morning class, so it was quite a popular time slot. And so I went in, and sure enough, I was the only fella in there, and I just had a crack at this dance class, and I'm 2 left feet. I'm good at that stuff if I get time to practice it. But yeah, so that was my first experience of a group fitness class in that capacity. But what was cool was how not just the instructor, but the other members of the class came up and said, like, how cool it is to see someone else come and try this class. Like, that was so awesome. You were having fun. We liked it. And I was like, oh, okay. So even though I felt clumsy, it was still a cool experience.
Which gym was that at?
That was at Craigie Leisure
It was at
Centre.
Craigie. Yeah.
So yeah. And so that was that broke the barrier down. And then she invited me to a body pump class as well. So I had that experience, which, because I was a lot meatier back then and lifting all the heavy weights. So I was definitely put in my place in a body pump class too. It's a different style of training.
Yeah, I can lift that. I can put 40 on either side. Yeah, watch this. 30 seconds later, oh, crap.
The instructor said, "Hey, love how ambitious you are in the bicep track there, but you might want to go a little bit lighter." And I literally said to her, I said, "I curl this in the gym every second day." I made it through the first minute. And then had to swallow my pride.
Then you got schooled and owned
the bar. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is actually harder than I'd been, led to believe, I suppose. So.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, so that was in that journey between, asking for help and ending up in chiropractic.
Yep.
So there was a bit of a gap there, but I think that obviously contributed to me being interested in what Ian was doing. So and I guess I've reflected on this before as a kid growing up on BMX bikes and mountain bikes, and I was even riding my flat bar hybrid from Perth essentially out to Murdoch, which was a 25K trip with me pannier bags on the back and all that sort of stuff. Like cycling was just part of my life. So the next logical step was to go to a cycle class and to have someone like Ian leading that class, had me sold. That was, I can remember it was RPM 36.
Oh wow!
Back then, so
there
you go. Painkiller was in that one. I remember that. So
love it.
Silver chair, straight lines. Sorry.
What a release! What a release!
It was an incredible release, and it sticks with me now. The Transcends Time, all those songs. Yeah. And then I trained on RPM 37, so I didn't muck around. Once I got into it, I was like, right.
How did your initial module training go? Talk us through that. How were you walking into it? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I was the least likely person to be doing anything on stage or as a microphone. I'm an introvert for sure, through and through. I recharge my battery surfing, right? So I can sit in the ocean and speak to no one for hours, and that's a good place for me, which will blow people away that have done training with me. That I put my trainer hat on and it's very upfront and it would appear extrovert, but no, I'm really introvert. So I was the last person that anyone would expect to go do an instructor module like this. And I'm pretty casual about time as well. So I used to be. I'm more attentive to time these days, but I had to get my wife to call the trainer back then. That was Robin Fermile back then, to let her know that I was running late for my first module. So I get in there, and I must have been 15 minutes late or something like that. And so I think I was more anxious about arriving late than actually contemplating what I was about to do across the weekend.
Yep.
And so I was kind of matter of fact about it, but yeah, got in there, did my 20 push-ups, which Ian and I always used to laugh about. It's like giving a fitness instructor push-ups as a punishment is kind of the opposite of a punishment. You know, of course I'm going to do 20 push-ups.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
You don't even need to ask me to do it. I'll do it.
So yeah, that was that. And then I had a really great experience. That was I think it was a Zest back then.
Yep.
Gym it was just south of Murdoch. And it was a small group. I think there was only 6 of us. And so it was an intimate weekend. And I think that was only 2 days back then.
Yep.
I know, kind of chopped and changed around then, but that was when they would give you the CD and then the choreography notes on the weekend. You had to work all out.
Yep.
But I was pretty good as an audio engineer. I suppose I had that connection to music, so understanding the music was never really an issue. But just knowing what to say was what I took out of that weekend.
Yep.
And then they gave me a microphone. Right. That I guess I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go here. And then I remember Robin gave me the microphone, and that was it. It was like this other personality came out. And she was blown away, right?
Yep.
Because she'd met me before, and I'm pretty quiet when I meet someone for the first time.
Yeah.
She was like, "Wow, like I didn't know you had it in you," and I was able to connect immediately, right? So was using people's names right from the word go. I turned. Turn It Up was the track that I was allocated first.
Yeah.
And I just turned that into a fun interval track. Yep. And I guess because I had that good experience, I just applied that formula across every other track. And, so that was my first training module, and that was 2007.
Yep.
And so I kind of surprised myself. I surprised everyone else as well, but came out of it really positive and was excited to get amongst it and teach to strangers, right? Yep. Put me on a stage, which was so out of ordinary for me.
Where did you teach your first class at?
Yeah, good question. It would highly likely be what would have been called Lord's Sports Club back then.
Yep.
Which is kind of it's kind of a mecca for fitness, really, in Western Australia.
Yeah.
But but I think I might have gone and taught at Craigie Leisure Centre as well.
Yep.
In those early stages, just to get more experience. And that was my home gym, I suppose, at that stage. But Robin, who was the trainer for that module, she was the group fitness manager at Lord Sports Club back then and was super keen to get me on board. So I actually covered Ian's classes. That's how I got my first full classes when he was traveling up north near Carragini, which we actually went on, but we came home early so I can come teach some classes.
This is the Group X podcast.
Do you remember your first class? Do you remember teaching your first class? Is it a vivid memory?
Yeah, that one at Lord's, I do remember it because the caliber of instructor that was at Lord's was super proficient, very professional, and so I felt like there were big cycling cleats to fill, and I was pretty nervous, but self-imposed pressure. It was tough, and I'd just gone straight into mixing.
Yep.
Right. So not even the release I was trained on. I was just like, Ian, can we come up with a mix? And he was like, yeah, here's all the favorites at the club there. So here you go, learn those ones. And that's how we did it.
Good man.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess the thing, and I learned at that stage, is like people came up and they gave you good feedback and all that sort of stuff. So was a really nurturing environment,
Yep.
Which was super cool because I could see how even constructive feedback may have been detrimental to a new instructor.
Yep.
Especially one that was really introvert and, had never really done much public speaking. I mean, that was my biggest fear going through high school, was getting up and talking in front of people. But that soon changed.
So, I'm going to share something with you. With the first ever RPM class, like I trained on RPM 23 and in North Sydney, and I got asked to cover a Friday night class at Living Well Health Club, which was later on turned into a fitness first. And I was asked to cover it. Now, I was that nervous that I put the microphone, it's meant to go over your ear and around the back of your head. Well, I put it over the top of your head. Yep. And so it come down in a weird thing. It was just everything about that class was wrong. From my energy being nervous to walking in there to not being able to work the stereo properly. Everything. If something was going to fuck up, it fucked up in that class. Yep. But it was that moment of, I had done my training and I was up on stage next to Shannon Cleary and doing everything that I was doing with my shadowing, and she was so, no, Tony, you've got to do this, you can't do that, say this. And I had to do the same track, which was Faster, Harder, Scooter, for 12 weeks straight. Wasn't allowed to do another track 5. That was the only track I was allowed to do until she gave me that tick to go, yep, cool, now we can do another one. And that first class that I ever got, when I put that microphone on the wrong way, and people at the end of class said to me, you know what, yeah, thanks, and walked out. And I sat there in a bloody heap just going, what have I done? Have I made the right choice? What the hell?
Yeah.
Having members that yeah, thanks, and walk out was like, okay, they appreciate the fact that there was someone there, but there was no feedback, no nothing.
Yeah.
So for me as an instructor, the next class that I taught, when people actually said to me and gave me feedback, thanks, that was great, I really enjoyed this, or whatever it may be, then my confidence started to boost. And I think instructors, sometimes, you can start off, you can have a great experience like you had, which is, instructors or members coming up afterwards going, yeah, this is absolutely gold. Yeah, we love this. But then you can have the other end of the spectrum, which is where I was, where it was an absolute train wreck. It was the car crash that you never want to experience, but yeah, okay. But I think I'm grateful that I did it in that way, and I had that experience because it allowed me to stumble and graze and almost like snap the pedal early.
Yeah.
So that I sort of went, okay, right, I've learnt, don't do that, don't say that. You've got to work it up. And having, where I was in North Sydney, there was a lot of Les Mills trainer presenters that were working at the clubs around there. So the caliber, as you're saying, like with Lords, was high, was very high.
Yeah.
They expected a certain standard from you, and if you didn't deliver, it's not that they would shoot you down, but they just wouldn't talk to you, wouldn't give you anything, wouldn't give you anything.
Kind of blocked you out.
Yeah. So it's but no, I like hearing the fact that first class you taught was a good one, because I think there's a lot of instructors out there that would have the same experience.
Well,
with that.
but I mean, like you said, there's the silver lining to that is you kind of started at rock bottom. Like the only way was up.
Yeah.
And you didn't die. You know what I mean? Like you it was like, I didn't die, so no one else died in my class, so that's also good.
Yes.
But and I mean, my observation would be that some instructors, especially the way modules are run now, is you get to reconnect with them 8 weeks after you start.
Yeah.
That's that they do have that experience. They go back to their clubs, and even the person they're shadowing with doesn't give them constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are still having those experiences, which is unfortunate. And I do think that's kind of one of the things Les Mills are doing real well at the moment, is to have that continued support across an 8-week period.
Yes.
Just so they can get a different point of view and do it amongst a group together, who are sharing those experiences, who are going through those same frustrations, who are also contemplating why the heck they're doing it.
Yeah.
And because I think that shared experience unites us and gives us that little bit of, okay, right, so I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah.
They survived. they're frustrated, but they came out of it, and this is what they learned from it, and here's how I can learn from it too.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean,
the silver linings there.
Yeah, one thing I'd say to any instructor who's looking to train up these days is get yourself a good mentor. Get yourself someone that is willing to actually help you through it and navigate the first part of your journey. You know, you can, if you have someone that's willing to invest time in you, you know you're going to be okay. You're going to get in there and you're going to be able to have fun, and you'll hang around and do it. So
Yeah.
find
And
someone.
we need as many people doing this as possible.
Yeah.
Right. Like the more of us that are out there creating amazing just experiences, the better it is for everyone. You know, not just from a fitness point of view, but from a community point of view.
Yes.
Right. It's this is my phrase, it's bigger than fitness.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. You have no idea how this experience will impact someone's life.
Yeah.
Right. You don't like. One of the best stories I tell when I'm running a module, I walk people into a track.
Yep.
Right. I'm like, who's got that person that stands in the same spot week after week, lifting the same weights week after week, still just as fat as they were when they started. And, I used to get a rise out of people. I'd be like, yeah, what's with that person? Why do they even bother? And then I'd drop it on them. So maybe it's the safest hour of their day.
Yep. Bang. There it is.
And then everyone's like, whoa, I never thought of it like that. So maybe they're not there for fitness.
Yep. It's the only thing they've got control over. It's their only hour of them time that they can be there. Yeah. It's powerful when you break it down and you look at that. It's I used to deal with when I was group fitness managing at North Sydney, there was a lot of instructors that would walk out of their class and get the shits. Someone in the front row, especially for RPM, someone in the front row was doing their own thing, and I got the shits with them. I'm like, hang on a second, no, don't get the shits with them. Why did you let your energy focus on one person when there was a room of 20 or 30 other people there?
Yeah.
You failed yourself. You didn't fail anybody else. You failed yourself because your energy went to the negativity in the room, and everybody else in that room lost you because your focus went there. Don't focus on that one person. That one person could have so much shit going on at home, or you don't know what's going on in their life. You know what? They're just there. Be grateful that they even turned up. As long as what they're doing is safe, let them be. Focus your energy on everybody else around you, because if everyone else in the room is pumping and enjoying themselves and having fun, that's infectious. And that one person that's in front of you that's doing the wrong thing is going to start to feel that change. They're going to look at it in a different way and go, you know what? Yeah, cool, okay. There's one thing that I remember from many days of group fitness management was, guys, don't focus on the one person. Focus on all of them. Give your energy to everyone. That's where you're going to make an impact in that room. And it's exactly as you said. You don't know what's going on in their life. You have no idea. Yeah. Don't pinpoint them out. Don't embarrass them. Don't say something to them. Call them out in front of everyone, because that's making the situation worse.
Yeah, especially that. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I've connected with them, but I connect with them afterwards. You just check in, like, is everything all right?
Yeah.
Like, especially if they're regular and you know how they behave. It's like, you seem distracted today,
Yeah.
But if you don't know them, you say, hey, what's happening? You seemed a bit distracted today. Is there anything we can help you with? And that's all it is. That's all it takes for people when they realize that someone else knows they exist, man, they can have such a big impact.
Yeah. So true.
So good. And we're in a fortunate position to be able to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Every day, in fact.
This is the Group X podcast.
Mate, how did the opportunity rise for you to become a trainer and presenter? And which one first, or was it both the same? Was it trainer first? Was it presenter, or was it just?
No, it happened at the same time. It happened at the same time. The opportunity came up when fellow trainer and presenter was asked to go do some work in New Zealand. So Kylie Gates, who was in Western Australia at the time, she was multiple programs, and I'll get this wrong, but I'm sure it was definitely body pump, because that's where the opportunity came up. Body balance, I suspect attack, and CX work she was involved with in Western Australia.
Yep.
Obviously trainer and presenter over there, but Les Mills gave her the call up and said, hey, you want to come and coach us instead? So she took that opportunity and flew over there. And another colleague, Tanya Sivan, she was a presenter as well. And she knew that I was interested in it, right? I was interested in the trainer role because I just feel I had so much to offer from an educational point of view. Just with my background in, like as a chiropractor and just understanding all the nuances that connect everything together, right? And I think that's my gift, right? That's my gift, is to understand how everything works together. And I can break down those complex ideas and make them digestible for pretty much everyone I meet. So that's my superpower.
Yep.
So I said to her, we did what was called an AIM 1 back then. I did it for Pump, and I guess I'd worked my ass off, and I've always interpreted it my own way. Like I took understanding how the model works, and I found its edges, and I pushed it to the limit, and I'll admit I would have stepped over the boundaries a few times, but that's what happens when you push the limit. And to really test the system and find different ways to do the same thing within the confines of the structure. And so I came to my AIM 1. We got the opportunity to present a couple of times across the weekend. And it was obvious I was doing things different. It was still within the constructs, but it was obviously different. And everyone went around the room. And I was that arsey guy, right? I was that guy that all trainers kind of roll their eyes at. But, Tanya said to me, she said, what are your goals as far as this weekend? And I said, I think I want your job, right? And everyone was just like, whoa, like, that's pretty brave. But I was just like, I think I love what you do. Like, I think I love the fact that we can enhance the experience of others through training others. You know what I mean? The more people we train, the further our reach goes. And I was like, I think that's the best way I can have an impact in this industry. So that's how that started. So when Kylie was asked to move to New Zealand, Tanya thought of me.
Yep.
Right. She's like, hey, there's an opportunity come up. I think you should submit your videos and go for the auditions. And so that's how I got into it. And I think that was around 2011 or 12, perhaps, maybe even a bit later.
Okay.
Because I think I was officially onboarded onto the team around 2013, 2014, but those dates are a bit blurry.
Yep.
So that's how, as in Australia, that's how that sort of came about for sure. So then I went through the audition process.
Yep.
And
was the audition process in WA?
Yeah,
it was.
So they actually came over. There was auditions for Pump. I'm guessing there was probably auditions for the other programs that Kylie had stepped out of as well. And I approached it. And this is the thing. And so when I do meet others who are auditioning for programs, like if you're listening out there, listen now. Was I went and I did it the way I thought they wanted to see it.
Yep.
Right. I even scripted. Right. I'm not the scripting type. I was always more of a planner. Right. Like I knew what I was going to do.
Yep.
But sticking to a script was, for me, too stressful.
Yep.
I'm a better being present, responding to what's happening in the room.
Yes.
Just have a plan, right? Yeah. Have your one-liners if you've got them, because I've definitely planned those every now and again. But I fully scripted everything for this back and hamstring track I presented, and it was so not me. And it was probably perfect, well scripted. Les Mills coaching layers 1, 2, 3, like done. Like it was. I scripted the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Like it was a great script, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me at all. So that first audition, I actually was, kindly rejected. So that's how that experience went, right?
How did you feel when you were told no? What went through your mind?
That they've made a fucking mistake. That's what I thought. I've still got that email. I sent it back to Michelle Dean, who can probably check this out, and she'll remember it too. And I just emailed her back. I said, I reckon you've made a mistake. And
But you're
I
brilliant.
reflect
I
on
love
that now. Man, how are the kahunas on that, dude? No, like that's not something I'd do now,
Yeah.
But she replied. She said, look, I have to say, I'm smiling from ear to ear. That's her email response back to me.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, look, I know there's an AIM 2 coming up, and Karen Russell is coming back over to run that one. I'm going to have another crack at it there.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. So that was that must have
brilliant.
been 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And so they hadn't, even from those auditions, they hadn't replaced Kylie at that point.
Yeah. Now there's some bloody big shoes to fill. I can understand.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And even the team that was there at the time, it was a strong team to sort of go toe to toe with.
Yeah.
You know? So there was some amazing presenters.
Yeah.
Jazz was there. Who else was there at WA? Scotty Hook. So Scotty's my brother.
Yep.
Who else was over there at that time? Oh yeah, Tanya Sibin for sure. Yeah, so I mean, they were amazing. I still hold them in the highest regards, you know, and we were eventually able to step up on stage with them, which was super cool. So we went. So went about business as per usual, and I was actually emailing back and forth Michelle Dean just occasionally, just to get a feel for what was coming up, and we were dropped in. I think it was Pump 93. It was the one for those of out there who are very pump involved. It was when they filmed, I think, at the Aqueduct in Auckland, and the Aussie team was involved. Mate Draxton was up there. Kaz presented. So I thought it was a pretty cool one to do AIM 2 on, but I'd kind of only got it 5 days before AIM 2. So I hadn't even really had a chance to present it.
Oh, wow.
So I actually hijacked another instructor's class just to have a crack at presenting a couple of the tracks.
Yeah.
And turns out she was on the team as well. So I was just like, I kind of, just these things kind of lined up. That was Hayley Gaspar.
Oh yeah.
So I hijacked her pump class Friday, the day before, to have a crack at presenting a couple of tracks, and but she was impressed too. She was like, "Wow, okay, that was fun." So, and she was in Kylie's ear at the time as well. So I think she put in a good word after that performance, and then across the weekend, I just did things how I do things generally, and I think that stood out way better across the weekend compared to doing the auditions, where I tried to be someone who I wasn't.
Yeah.
And plus, because I'd only presented the track once before, I had 4 chances across the weekend, so it progressively got better and better.
Yeah.
So there was that good opportunity to show growth across the weekend as well. Plus, I was kind of like the cheerleader for everyone. Like I was getting everyone in for group hugs and all that sort of stuff, which is crazy for someone who's an introvert. But when I put that microphone on, that's just what happens.
A different person comes out.
It was a different person. So I think even from that point of view, just interacting with the whole group in that way across that weekend, it definitely caught Karen Russell's attention. So she asked me to send through a couple of audition DVDs back then when we had that technology to print a DVD.
Yep. The video.
The other 2 people that were asked that weekend as well, that was Tina Smith.
Yep.
So that was the weekend, and we actually trained pump together, and I still have to apologize to Tina if she ever listens to this, that we trained on the same pump release together. And she was like, how crazy cool is it that we're both on the team, we both trained pump together? And I was like, we didn't train together. Surely I'd remember that. No way. But turns out we're at the same module.
Yeah.
So how funny. So yeah, sorry, Tina, but I do love that we got to present together after all those years.
Love it.
And then the other person that was asked to audition was Christy Wilkinson, who's now on the team as well for WA. So yeah, that was back then.
Perfect.
It was cool experience.
Yeah. So talk to me about.
That's how I got invited on the team. So they invited me with the intent to become a trainer, and they're like, "Well, we need a presenter too. So here you go, be a presenter." Yeah.
This is the Group X podcast.
Talk us through your first training module you did by yourself. How did it go? Was it good? Was it a car crash? Were you nervous as hell?
No, the car crash was the one that Karen Russell came and assessed me on, right? So Scott Hook took me under his wing. He's a dude, right? I still love that guy.
Is he still around? Is he still teaching? He stepped away, has he?
No, he stepped away from Les Mills, and he's running an amazing facility down in Vass in Busselton, Western Australia.
A CrossFit center.
Just great dude. He's got his stuff together. He'd be worth having a chat to at some stage.
Yep.
And we called ourselves the bad boys, right? So he was obviously Mike Lowry, he was the good looking dude, and he was leading from the front. And I was Marcus Burnett, the awkward guy that brings a little comic relief,
Yeah. Perfect.
So between the two of us, so that's who he trained me to be a trainer. And he just had such a casual way about him. Now, I'll be honest, he's a bogan from Geraldton in Western Australia, and I'm a bogan from Duncraig in Western Australia. So we hit it off, and we just had that. Yeah, we knew how to get it done. We knew how to direct traffic when we needed to, but it was still fun. It was the branch that was bending. It wasn't so rigid that you had to stick to everything to the letter. So that's how I trained. So, and that was great. And we had our stuff together, which was great. And then Karen came over to assess, to sign me off as a trainer. And man, that was the train smash. I didn't even introduce myself to the group, right? I just hooked into it. I was like, here's what we're doing this week. I didn't even, and I remember because one of the participants was like, what's your name? I was just like, whoa, I totally have missed that whole thing.
Yeah.
So that shook me from the start. It just felt really lumpy that weekend.
Yep.
Again, and this is one thing, I should have just been authentic right from the word go, do it the way I usually do it.
Yep.
Instead, I was trying to meet someone else's values, which I had no idea about.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was clunky, because it wasn't authentic to me.
Yeah.
So that was the train smash one. But that set me up, like you had that experience. So I was like, well, it can't really get any worse than that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I messed that up. I missed a couple of key components, which was no detriment to the training.
Yeah.
But it was, for me, I was just like, I wouldn't have missed that if I just done it the way I usually do it. You know?
Yeah.
So that was the take home from that. Karen was great with feedback. She was pretty firm back then. So I knew exactly what I had to tidy up, and she signed me off. And then I went into my first one by myself, which I think was actually up north in Port Hedland or something like that.
Yep.
With a really cool bunch of people. And that went off amazing. And that was fraught with all these other issues, right? Like when I got to the airport, the plane was late, and then I got there and there's no taxis. And I got to the accommodation, and my accommodation wasn't booked till the day after. And then, by the time I actually got to the venue, I was already half an hour late because the taxi never came that I ordered, and just all this sort of stuff. And,
comedy of errors.
I was okay with it. I was just like, it is what it is. There was, I called hours ahead to get this taxi, and I did everything I needed to do, but it just didn't work out. But and everyone understood that, good community up there, and so one of them offered to take me back and pick me up the next day. So we solved that problem, but then we couldn't get into the facility the second day. So just all these things were going on, but it was like, you know what?
You're not going to let it phase you.
Understanding all the content, I was
Yeah.
like, I can't set up my projector, I can't do all this stuff, but I know it, right?
Yeah.
Let's chat it out while we're here,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We improvised, and they had a really good quality training experience.
Yep.
And you know, I got out of there on time, and that was great. It was great to have that experience after the one where I felt like I fell flat on my face.
Yeah.
And then I think the next weekend I came back down to Perth, and I was like, well, I've had a couple of stumbles to start with. It, you know, surely it can't be any more difficult than that. And then I was just flying after that.
Yeah.
Getting it done really well. It was fun.
What about the first time you presented? The first time you did a quarterly workshop?
That was, I can't even remember what release. I think that might have been 95 or something like that. And it just felt right. Like, it was the first time I'd met Wendy, who's, I think she's trained on like pump 8 or something like that.
Yep.
Something outrageous.
Yep.
Wendy Elfstein, for those who know her, she's amazing. So that was the first one that I taught, and I'd never met her before, but she was so wonderful that it just felt natural, right? By the time I got up there, I was like, this is just what I do. You know, this is it. And I tell you, one of the things that I'd always presented, it doesn't matter who I present to, but I always presented like Glenn Ostergaard was going to walk in the room at any given time, right?
Yep.
And I would always be that prepared that it would impress the socks off Glenn.
Yep.
That's how I approached everything.
Yep.
Because if I was willing to do it for Glenn, I should have been willing to do that kind of preparation for everyone who was standing in front of me every week.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think it was that mindset that had me just like, right, you know, everyone that fronts up every week, I got to be on my A game, doing it the best I can. So by the time I presented with Wendy, it just felt natural.
Yep.
So did I have the shakes? I think I remember doing a bicep track at one stage, and I could feel my calf twitching and carrying on. I was like, well, that's unusual. So, but I was present enough to notice it. You know what I mean? I was like,
you're in the moment of going, okay,
you know,
yeah.
So, okay, yeah, I'm definitely feeling something here, but still nailed that bicep track.
Yeah.
Good. Glenn would have been proud. He would have been proud. I was proud. Wendy loved it. She was such a good presenter to start with as well.
Yeah.
So
Wendy's got years of experience. She's a top chick. Yeah, got a lot to give, a lot of energy.
A lot of I appreciate everything she's done for the industry and supported could you imagine the thousands of people she's trained up and then they've gone on to have the ripple effect? It blows my mind, that stuff.
Yeah.
She probably never considers that either.
Yeah.
You know, she's quite humble, and the lives she would have touched, amazing.
I chatted to her a couple of episodes ago, and she's got an amazing story to tell. So if people haven't listened to that one, go back and chuck yourself in and have a listen to that one as well. So, hey, what do you prefer, training or presenting, or both? Which one is it?
I think I'd training.
Yep.
To be honest.
Yep.
I think we can have such an impact from that experience. Like I said, the ripple effect from there.
Yep.
Do I have fun presenting? You bet, right?
Yep.
Like I love that. I love that opportunity to get up there, and my challenge every single quarter is to do it differently.
Yep.
You know, do it in a way
that's unique,
that most people wouldn't consider it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I do a pretty good job of that. I just interpret things differently. I think, you know, but I think training is where we can have the biggest impacts on the future of the profession. But that doesn't take away from presenting.
Yeah.
You know?
So what
But
programs?
if I had to give up one, I'd probably give up presenting.
Yeah.
If the gun was held to my head.
What programs are you training presenting? Is it just pump, or are you doing others as well?
Oh, pump, RPM, and sprint.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Out of all three,
So,
which is do you have a favorite? I mean, no, we're not meant to have a favorite, but do you have a favorite out of all three? It's like asking a parent
I
which
got
is your
to
favourite child, isn't it?
say, well, no, but everyone does have a favorite
Yeah.
child, but for different reasons,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
For different reasons. I love the shit out of pump because it kind of takes me back to what I felt was the start of my fitness journey. You know, once I got into the gym and I was lifting weights and I found a training buddy, and and I love that. And I still love just the primitive feel of lifting something heavy,
Yeah.
and not conquering it, but like being challenged by it and responding to the challenge. I love that. And so I've got that deep connection with Body Pump. And I do. I'd like to blow the socks off that program. And I probably instruct that more than any other program now at the moment anyway. But the one I sit most naturally in, I think, is my long history of cycling.
Yep.
I think, like I've always been on a bike. When I look back across my life, there's always been a bike involved. So that my capacity to create a journey and experience in RPM, I think we've got more flexibility to do that. There's more space for us to do that.
Yep.
We can change lights and all that sort of stuff as we go.
Yep.
That's where I sit most comfortably, and I can be super, super present without the busyness of what would happen in a pump class.
Yep.
And then it turns out I'm really great at high intensity training.
Yep.
And so putting me on a bike that does high intensity training, that's almost that's a no-brainer.
Yep. It's the next evolution.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. But I just don't feel you can create the journey the same way.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I love high intensity training and I love using it in the right way.
Yep.
But I think when it comes to experiences, I think we can create a journey in RPM. Which that would be my favorite child.
Yep. Excellent. Hey, I love
them for different reasons.
I got two more questions for you, and we'll wrap it up because I want to try and keep these ones short. Otherwise, I know you and we could talk for hours, man. We could seriously talk for hours. There's the last two questions. The first one is going to be, if there's any are there any words of wisdom you can give to an instructor looking to do what you do? What would it be?
It comes right back to authenticity. Yep. Right. The hardest thing is to try and be something you think someone else wants you to be. Just saying it out loud is difficult, right? I'm in a fortunate position to be involved in the advanced training modules that are going on now, which I highly recommend. Get amongst that, because we work on taking the shackles off. Yep. Right. That's what I call it. Right. What are the barriers to you progressing as a coach or an instructor in your programs? And I probably had the most practice at this module than anyone in Australia. And I get it, right? I've done a lot of like professional development on myself, and worked out where those shackles are. And to take those shackles off, man, people shine. And the biggest one is people trying to be something they're not. Yeah. Right. Trying to fill shoes that they thought were meant to fit. Yep. And if they could just be who they are unapologetically, that would be the biggest piece of advice I could give. Yeah. Which is easier said than done. Right. So that's why investing in yourself to do one of those modules is great, because what you think is happening, what is actually happening, are two very different things. Yeah. And if you can get someone to recognize it in themselves, then you have these amazing breakthroughs. There's a difference between telling someone that they've got shackles on and someone realizing they've got shackles on. And that's what I do super well in these modules. I'd never tell anyone what is holding them back, even though I can see it. Like to me, I look at it and I'm like, I know exactly what's holding you back. Yeah. And I'll step them, however precarious it is, towards them verbalizing that out loud, right? And when you get them to do that, man, like an eruption of emotions. You see it all, right? From anger, despair, frustration, sadness. Like when they recognize that, elation, right? it's life changing for them. And then they have this new zest for group fitness, right? And they want to go out there, and there's a lot of jaded instructors out there, right? Why? Because they're doing it in a way they think someone else wants them to be doing it.
Yeah.
And if you can take those shackles off, man, you've got longevity right there. Be an instructor until you can't do it anymore.
Wise words, mate. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Now, the last question that I want to wrap up with, and it's I think it's a bit of a curly one. Some others that I've asked this have sort of gone, whoa, okay. What does the future hold for Adam?
I mean, I've got multiple projects on the go. My biggest one is expanding the chiropractic situation for me, so that can facilitate me doing more fitness stuff. It sounds crazy, right? But I'm working hard on the chiropractic business so I can get involved in some capacity more with the fitness industry, because that's where like my unlimited energy lives. You know, if you're passionate for something, like it's unlimited. So that's the immediate future. And that's what, that's been the plan for the last 12 months, probably 18 months, maybe even longer, 2 years. But, the last 2 years have been interesting for everyone. So
very true.
A few plans have changed.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate not to have to close for a day of business at all over the last 2 years. But so that would be my immediate focus. What does it look like in the fitness industry? I mean, I still want to be involved in a training capacity of some sort. I enjoy that so much. And the other thing is creativity, right? Like to create training experiences. That's something that needs to be exercised for me, creating workouts, creating awesome workout experiences. That's a muscle that I don't think I've flexed enough.
Yep.
And so I'll definitely be in the creative space in the very near future for sure as well.
Awesome.
So there you go. Yeah. Training and creating.
Mate, thank you. I wish you all the best with that. I hope it comes to fruition for you in the way that you want it to, because I can see things are already happening for you. But mate, I look forward to seeing that space. So everyone out there, watch this space, man. Watch this space.
Thanks, TZ.
No, Adam, look, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with us. It's greatly appreciated. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people out there that will gel with what you've had to say. And mate, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.